Okay, good evening, everyone. How are you doing? Good. As always, I am hoping that you are all in good and safe condition. Before we begin, I want to say thank you for submitting your work, interesting answers from you. And I will be finalizing my marking and giving you feedback after this session. But for today, let's move on to network externality and standard. And let me share my slide. Okay, can you see my slides okay? Yes, good. Now, just an intermezzo for you. Some of you may already know about this, but if not, I would suggest you to take a look at this channel. It was a movie series from YouTube Originals. So they published 9 videos. They are about 30 to 40 minutes in duration, entitled The Age of AI. And for me, I find it to be very interesting, very fascinating, and I hope it can give you a kind of idea for your group projects and for your future career if you are interested in AI, because it covers so many AI application in different sectors and different industries with lots of state-of-the-art technologies in AI. So if you have plenty of time, I strongly suggest you to watch the movie. And secondly, to give you a kind of sense of how AI works in practice, I also suggest you to try these apps, which called Loop. You can go to www.loop.ai. So it is owned by Microsoft. It's free. It's available in different platforms. So it's available on Microsoft Windows. It's available on Apple Mac OS and things like that. And at the moment, it can be used to kind of recognize image using AI. But in the future, it will be capable of analyzing data, analyzing patterns, and so on and so forth. It is currently still in beta version, but it's free. And if you have plenty of time, then try to download and install the software and try to train the software to identify or to recognize some images or some photos or pictures and things like that. So for example, last week the New York Times try to analyze the political choices of user of a person based on the content of their fridge, and they use they basically they download those kind of photos, those kind of pictures, and then put them on Loop, and then Loop can process the image. Loop can detect the image, the content of the fridge, and so on and so forth, and can analyze which fridge that belong to the person who support Donald Trump, and which image or which picture that belongs to the fridge who is owned by the a person who support Joe Biden. So this is quite interesting, because it turns out that the machine can analyze the pictures with quite high accuracy of 85%. So again, if you have plenty of time, I would suggest you to try this to try this application. It is free, it is very easy to use, and it is quite capable of recognizing photos, image, and so on and so forth. And by doing this, I hope you can get a sense of understanding on how image recognition works in practice. So for example, Facebook use this kind of technology to automatically tag a person in a photo. And it is quite accurate, to be honest. And the way Facebook analyze the photos is the same as the way Loeb analyze the pictures. So basically using a kind of artificial intelligence, using a kind of a series of machine learning and deep learning and things like that. So if you have plenty of time, then try to play around with the software. Okay. Now let's move on to our previous question, which is: do you think that we should develop a digital platform in order to survive in the digital economy? Anyone wants to comment on this question? Probably one representative from one university or from one country, please.
Can I, Professor?
Yes, please go ahead.
I think it's a very important and necessary for business to develop a digital platform to survive in the digital economy because I think the digital economy is developing rapidly worldwide. So every business transactions are more and more depending on the digital computing technologies or depending on the internet. So I think it's similar in the with the chicken and egg problem that we have learned on the previous session. So, because the digital economies is developing rapidly worldwide, so more and more customers have used digital platform to go shopping. So, if the business adopt the digital platform in order to approach more with the consumer, they will have more data to understand the desire or the expectation from the customer. And the more they understand the expectation from the customer, they will have greater knowledge about the consumer behavior so they can adjust their product in the way that maximize the expectation from the customer. So I believe that the digital platform had the potential to create sustainable and positive impact for the business. So the organization, they need to create a digital platform to survive, to compete, or otherwise they have to face the risk being left behind with other competitions in the digital transformations.
Okay, thank you. Very good. So you think by developing digital platform, it means that you can gather more data and you can use those data to develop better service for your user, for your customers. Any other comments or answers from other students, please?
Sir, I would like to answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so I agree with her that it is important for us to develop a business develop digital platform in order to just fast survive in the digital economy, because like as we all know right now, for businesses and firm, their basis in decision making are built upon on the situation of the surrounding. And as we are living in a world that are continuously changing rapidly over time and right now where everything are digitalized, therefore it is important for businesses and firm to keep up with the development of the surrounding, including with the development of the digital platform and also following the customer demand. Therefore, I reckon if for businesses they decide not to develop digital platform, they might going to give a setback in their business. That's why how businesses adopt digital platform or technology, it will be one of the key determinant as their future growth as well.
Okay, thank you.
Can I
Any other
answer?
Sorry?
Can I answer?
Yeah.
I fully agree with the previous two speakers. As a person who is currently working in a company which creates digital platforms for other businesses, I could say that it is very essential for you to not only improve your customers' experience, but also to attract customers, because most companies do not have their websites and digital platforms that are representing their identity. That is why they're not only losing the customer segment, they're like losing the potential to collaborate with other companies as well.
Okay.
And they're wasting money because they do not develop their, like, they create a digital platform, but they do not develop it, and that might be the problem.
Okay, thank you. If it is not being developed very carefully, then it can cause another problem instead of benefit for the company. Any other comments, please?
Sir, can I answer the question?
Yeah.
I think we should develop digital platform in order to survive in the digital economy, is because these effects are giving rise to entirely new market structure. And the best example of this is the rise of digital platforms such as Amazon, Uber, Airbnb, and these companies connect market participants together in a virtual world. And not just that, digital platform facilitate transactions and networking as well as information exchange. From a business perspective, I think that the transformations of all sectors and market through digitalizations can also foster the production of higher quality goods and services at reduced cost.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Any other comments? Different answers or different opinions, please?
Hello, Professor.
Yeah,
May
please.
I have a comment on this one?
Yeah, sure.
So, in my opinion, beside developing a digital platform to survive in the digital economy, it is even more important for companies, business entities to not just develop, but how to make sure that the society could immerse into the new digital platforms that they're making. Because all in all, if a digital platform is not purpose driven for the customers or the users, it will be just nothing. It will be just an innovation that is not useful for the society. In addition, for a digital platform to bring new values to users and customers, it should also be inclusive, where everyone could easily get the access to it. So in my opinion, besides developing a digital platform, it is also important for businesses to be able to educate its customers in terms of the usage of digital platform itself.
Okay, thank you. Very good. So it is important to develop digital platform, but it is also very important to convince user and convince your customer to join into your platform. Any other comments probably, or different comments, different opinions? No? So previously we talk about digital platform, and we can compare digital platform with traditional businesses. In traditional businesses, you are only competing in one dimension, which is cost. So because of that, you want to apply economies of scale so that your companies become much more effective, much more efficient, much more profitable, and so on and so forth. But with digital platform business, you are not only competing on cost, but also competing on value. So that's why it is important for you to maximize your network effect. And by doing so, you can provide higher marginal value at lower marginal cost. But the thing is that you have to think about yourself. You have to think about your organization or your company. Can you capture value by creating your own digital platform or by participating in a digital platform? If the answer is yes, then you should go with digital platform business. But if the answer is no, then probably you don't need to have a digital platform business. So for example, if you just launch your product, you don't know anyone in the industry, maybe you can sign up, or maybe you can join the existing digital platform like Amazon or eBay or Apple Play Store and things like that. But as soon as you establish your presence, as soon as you develop your brand, As soon as you've got a huge customer base, then probably you can quit from that platform. You can quit from Amazon, you can quit from eBay, you can quit from Apple Play Store and develop your own business, develop your own digital platform. So again, the question is whether can you capture value by creating your own digital platform or by participating in an existing digital platform. If you can capture value, then please go on with that. But if you don't, then probably it is not a good idea to have your own digital platform. Because again, if you cannot organize it, if you cannot manage it, then it can be another problem for you instead of giving you benefit for the organization. And then another thing that we have to consider is about the resource orchestration. In a traditional business model, you have to rely on your own resources, your own technology, your own human resource, your own financing, and things like that. But with a digital platform, you have to own, you have to rely on third-party resources. So the question is, do you have the capability to orchestrate, to manage distributed resources in order to speed up innovation? Because managing distributed resources from different sources outside of the company can be very difficult, can be very, very challenging. So if you don't have the capability to manage those kind of complexity, then probably it is not a good idea to have your own digital platform. Okay, I hope it gives you a kind of idea about digital platform that we have discussed last Wednesday. And before we move on to network effect, network externality, and standardization, probably do you have any questions or comments about this particular topic? No? So far, so good. Okay. So these are the things that we will be covering in this particular session. So we will begin with the definition of a network, and then we will be talking about network economy. How does it relates with business, and what is the definition of network externality? What is the definition of standardization? We will move on to something that is quite technical, which is technical interrelatedness, system scale economies, and quasi-irreversibility. Don't worry about that. We will get into that technical definition later on. And then finally, I will give you a kind of introduction towards path dependency in technological innovation, and how this is important, and why we have to think about path dependency very carefully. And then we will end up by giving you a kind of key takeaways and concluding remarks. So, what is network and why network is very important nowadays? So basically, before we have technology, the network is very limited. Our network is very limited. Probably our network is only in our village or in our city or in our region. But after the technological innovation, then our network is becoming bigger and hypothetically unlimited, because everyone is connected. Even if you are on another planet, but if you are still connected with the internet, with the communication technologies and things like that, then it means that you are still in the network. So for example, back in 1990s, probably I only have about 100 name card or 100 business card from my colleagues, from my friends, families, and so on and so forth. But nowadays, I can have more than 500 friends on Facebook, which is quite low compared to current standard. I can also have about 1,000 friends on Instagram. I can have about 1,000 connection, professional connection on my LinkedIn. I can also have another 2,000 followers on Twitter. So because of the technology, then our network is becoming bigger, and hypothetically, it can be unlimited. Imagine if you are a public figure, if you are um, um, a business leader, or if you are a manager of top companies in the world, then everyone wants to get connected with you, right? So as a result, your network is becoming very, very big. And, and the internet itself cannot exist without networks. For example, if you have a fax machine, the fax machine itself is useless. But if you have many different fax machines, for example, you have one fax machine in the office, one fax machine in your house, one fax machine in some other place, and things like that, then the value of those fax machine networks can be very useful. But if you only have one, then pretty much it's useless. So the same goes with the internet. If you only have one node, if you only have one computer, then pretty much it doesn't give you any value. But if those computers are being connected, then the value of the internet is becoming bigger, is becoming larger. And this is very important because even though network economy is not something that is totally new, but with the emerging of internet, with the emerging of information and communication technology, then it can help you to uncover new business opportunities, because everybody is connected. So you can get new supplier, you can get new customer, you can get new business partner, you can get new technology vendors from anywhere, from everywhere around the world. Because again, everybody is connected with the internet. Okay, if we don't have internet, if we don't have communication technology, then probably the possibility for us to have a supplier, to have a customer and things like that is very limited to our to where we live at the moment, probably in our city, in our region, or in our village. But with internet, with communication technology, then the network is becoming bigger. And you have to remember that every business will always rely on network. It can be network of customers, uh, network of suppliers, network of retailers, network of investors, and things like that. So you cannot do business by yourself. You have to rely on different sorts of network. And the higher the number of person or organization in your network, then the value of the network is also increasing. And by using the internet, um, this kind of network is only becoming much more valuable because it allows an abundance information flow from millions or billions different points. And then again, the bigger your network, then the higher the value that you have. So the more people that you know, the more organization, the more companies that you know, then the value of you, the value of your company is also becoming higher. It can become a kind of validation for you, because if a lot of people recognize you, a lot of people recognize your business, then we can say that your business model is good. We can say that your business model is valid and viable. Okay. And now, how does it relates with business? So Leibowitz in 2002 describes a phenomena that he called winner takes all. So in some industries or in some sectors, it is very possible for a business to share with other businesses to increase their network capabilities. And they can do this by pooling resources. They can do this by sharing financial resources, sharing human resources, sharing their knowledge, sharing their expertise. They can also achieve this by linking manufacturing, distribution, and marketing all together. And by doing this, they form a kind of technology cooperation networks. So if you still remember the slides that I gave you last Wednesday on the ecosystem of Apple, you know that the ecosystem of Apple is capable of doing all of those things. So Apple is capable of pooling resources. Apple is capable of sharing financial resources, human resources, knowledge, expertise with lots of different companies. Apple is also capable of linking manufacturing, distribution, R&D, marketing, and things like that. And Apple is also capable to form its own technology cooperation networks. And then secondly, this is quite different compared to industrial economy, because in industrial economy, everything is about competition. So you want to be exclusive. You want to be win the market by yourself. You will not involve any other companies to help you, any other suppliers or any other vendors to help you. It is done by yourself, and this is quite different with what we are experiencing now in the digital economy, because in the digital economy, we want to include many different parties, many different organizations. We want to include many different resources, many different knowledge, many different technologies, and things like that. And consequently, there is a move from the concept of access to the concept of ownership. Remember our previous session, I gave you a kind of chart where the relevance of accounting, conventional accounting information is no longer relevant in valuing the company in the stock market. So the valuation in the stock market is now is now much more relevant if we are using intangible. So, and intangibles represent the way the company is doing innovation, the way the company is doing R&D, the way the companies develop their networks, and so on and so forth. So there is a movement from access there is a movement from ownership, from asset, from what do you have, what buildings, what factories, what cars, what machine that you have, toward access, toward networks. Because network is much more important, because access is much more important compared to ownership, compared to access. And the first point is actually about digital platform that we have discussed in our previous session. And the second point is actually again about cooperation, about building networks, about developing your own ecosystem, because you cannot win the game by being exclusive. You have to cooperate and you have to collaborate with other companies, with other organizations. And the third point is actually about changes or a paradigm shift from asset or ownership to access or network. So it implies that probably it is okay for you if you don't have any money. The most important thing is you have access to investors, you have access to developers, you have access to suppliers, you have access to product managers and things like that. So the importance of access and network nowadays is very important compared to asset or ownership itself. Any comments or question? This is Klaus Schwab, founder and executive chairman of World Economic Forum. He actually the person who came up with the term of Industrial Revolution 4.0. So he is the man who is responsible for using that term. And he said that in the new world, it is not the big fish which eats the small fish. It is the fast fish eats the slow fish. So again, it is very important for us to be adaptive, to be agile, to be flexible, to be responsive in responding to any changes in the market, any changes in the technology and things like that. Because asset is no longer important. It is still important if you have lots of money, if you have lots of technology, then it is good. But it is not the most important thing, because what we need now is not only asset, it is not only about how big you are, but how fast you are. Okay, so by becoming adaptive, by becoming agile, by becoming flexible, by becoming more responsive, it can help you to win the game. Okay, now we know about network, we know about externality, we know about network, we know about economy, we know how networks affect our business. And then so what? So let me introduce you again with network externality. So basically, we are part of many different networks. We as a consumer is probably a member of network of same telephone service. It can be, for example, Axiata, Viatel, SK Telecom, Singtel, and things like that. Most of us are also probably a member of a network from the same social network like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or things like that. And the thing that we have to remember is that demand for service or demand for products depends on the size of the network itself. If the size of the network is small, then the demand for that service is also very small. But if the size of the network is huge, then the demand for that service is also very huge. For example, if most of us are probably using WhatsApp, the size of the WhatsApp network is very huge. Imagine if one day WhatsApp is down. They have a kind of technical issues, they have a kind of technical problems, connection problems, and things like that, so that we cannot use our WhatsApp application. Imagine how many people are looking for that service. Imagine how many people are complaining about WhatsApp. Imagine how many people want WhatsApp to get back in operation again as soon as possible. So the size of the network is very important, again, because the larger the size of your network, then the bigger the demand for that service in that particular network. And the network externality itself, as I said in our previous session, is a phenomenon in which entry of new users into the network can be beneficial or can be costly for other users in the network. If the effect is positive, then we can say it is a positive externality. But if the more users are becoming the member of the network, but then it makes other users in that network suffers, then we can say that this is negative externality. Okay, if it benefited all the member of the users, then we can say it is positive externality. But if it makes other users suffer by adding more people in the network, then we can say that it is negative externality. Okay. Why do we have to think about this? Because in every network, it will show a kind of network externality. And in every network, we can find the outer key value and synchronization value. So the outer key value is the value from the product or from the service that we are using, and user will get this even if there is no other user using the same product or service. While synchronization value is about the value from the network as the result of new members or new users joining into the network. So it becomes a kind of complementary users. And this synchronization value is the one that we have to be very careful of, because it can decide whether the value is becoming positive externality or negative externality. Okay, let me give you an example. So on the left-hand side, we have a traditional telephone machine or telephone box. The machine itself, it has no outer key value. Why? Because if no one else is using this phone, then there is no use for us to use this kind of phone as well. Okay? Because no one else is using that kind of product, then we cannot use this telephone for our purpose. Let's compare it with computers or internet. The computer on the right-hand side is having outer key value, because even if you are not connected to the internet, you can still use the computer for writing reports or making presentation or playing games or watching movies, Korean dramas, and things like that. Even though you are not connected to the internet, the computer still has outer key value, even though the outer key value is probably not that optimal. But even if in this world only you have this kind of computers, then it still have outer key value for you. But with this telephone is having no outer key value if no one else is not is using it. So if only you in this world who are having this kind of telephone, then it gives you no value at all. But if there are many people who are using the same telephone, then it can give you a synchronization value. Because the more people who are using the telephone, then the value of this telephone is also increasing. The same goes with this computer or this internet. The more people are getting their computers connected to the internet, then the higher the value of the internet. Okay, so I hope this kind of illustration gives you an idea what is outer key value and what is a synchronization value. If the network is giving you synchronization value in a positive way, then we can say that the network is having positive network externality or positive network effect. But if the network is not giving you a synchronization value, or the synchronization value is negative, then we can say that the network is having negative network externality or negative network effects. Okay, let's take a look at those one by one. In positive network externality, or we can say positive externality, is simply by if more user is becoming the member of the network, then it is called positive externality because it increase the value of the service or the value of the products, and this is also known as network effect. And the thing that we have to remember is that technology innovation usually will have a kind of technology spillover. And this kind of spillover is actually a kind of positive externality. Because when one company, for example, one company developed the internet, actually they developed, the US government was developing the internet for military purpose at that moment. Initially, they were developing those kind of internet network for military purpose. But along the way, the internet technology is giving us a kind of spillover, a kind of positive externality, because it turns out that the internet can also be used for education, can also be used for entertainment, can also be used for commerce, for many other purposes. So essentially, when we are talking about technology innovation, technology development, it will give us a spillover that eventually will benefit not only the company, not only the organization, but also the society as well. And we have to be very careful because in some network, it can build positive externality, but once you pass the certain number, or once you pass the tipping point, then it can become negative externality. So for example, if you have a network of blockchain or network of cryptocurrencies, for example, the more users are joining the system, it can give you a kind of positive externality. But then if too much people are joining the system, it could exceed the capacity and it could potentially slowing down the system. And by that point, we can say that the network is suffer from negative externality. Negative externality, as I said before, it is the effect where the entry of a new user coming to the network is becoming costly for other members of the network. For example, in traffic congestion. So the more people who are using the road, the more people who are driving their car, it will makes potentially it will increase the possibility of traffic jam, um, traffic congestion, or probably it can makes the pollution as well. And and the negative externalities can often be seen in the later stage of networks where resources are finite. And this is why it is very important for the government to pay attention to this kind of technology or this kind of phenomena, because the government can internalize an externality and avoid market failure. So for example, if the government wants to avoid traffic jam, if the government wants to avoid traffic congestion or pollution on the road, then the government can impose tax for your car. The government can requires you to get a license before you can drive your car, for example. The government can requires you to pay insurance. The government can requires you to pay fees if you want to access some highway or toll road and things like that. In London, for example, they have a kind of congestion charge. So if you are moving into the, or if you are driving your car in the city center during the rush hour, then you have to pay a certain price to avoid market failure, to encourage you for not using your car in that particular time. So I hope you have an idea about network externalities and positive externality as well as negative externality. In technological innovation, usually we will be dealing with many different networks, and we should be familiar with network externality. Okay, any questions or comments? No comments, no question? Now, okay, let's say we know about network externality. Now, how does it relates to standardization? Some of you may already have watched this YouTube short movies on why do most countries use different railway codes. So basically, every network or each network will have its own standard. So the network of Apple ecosystem, they will have their own standard. The network of Google Android, they will have their own standard. The network of railway in the US is very different compared to the network of railway in European countries, for example. The network of electricity in the US, for example, is also very different compared to the network of electricity in European countries or in Asia, for example. Some countries will have alternating current or AC. Some countries will have direct current or DC. Some countries will have road where we are driving on the left side of the road. In some countries, we will have to drive on the right-hand side of the road. So it goes back to Napoleon Bonaparte. If you don't know about that, Napoleon Bonaparte is a left-handed person. So if he has to, if he had to walk on the left-hand side of the road, then he cannot use his left hand to use his sword by if he ride his horse and things like that. Basically, he cannot use his left hand. So he decided to change France and many other countries so that they move to the right hand side of the road, because if he use or if he walk on the right hand side of the road, then basically he can use his left hand to use his sword and things like that. So that's the urban legend about why some countries are having a road on the left hand side and having a road on the right hand side. But what I want to say is that we have to recognize that there are so many different networks in this country, in this world. And the question is, when we are going to develop our innovation, are we going to compete with that network, or are we going to be part of that network? If there is only one, then we have to think about product differentiation. We have to think about competition. But if you are going to participate in more than one network, then obviously you have to think about the competition or the market power in that network. And the thing that we have to remember is that the larger the network, then potentially it gives more benefit for the user. So the owner of the network can increase the price, because no matter what, the customer will always need the product. The customer will always need the service. So there is no reason for them not to pay the price. Okay. That's why it is important for us to remember or to pay attention to the network and the standards that are being used in that particular network. Let's say you want to develop a new innovation. Let's say you want to introduce new technology. Let's say you develop new AI or new machine learning or new other digital technology. Then you have two different options. You can use evolutionary strategy or you can use revolutionary strategy. If using evolutionary strategy, then it means that you will make the technology backward compatible. So your new technology will be compatible with previous technology. That's what we call evolutionary or backward compatible. But if you choose to become revolutionary, then your new technology will not be compatible with existing or with previous technology. Another thing that we have to remember is your competition. Another thing that we have to consider is your competition, because if you are going to compete with other companies or other competitors, then you will have three different options. The first option is called rival evolution. So both of you will develop evolutionary innovation or backward compatible innovation. But your technology will not be compatible with your competitor's technology. For example, DVDs and DivX both are compatible with CDs, which was the previous technology, but DVDs and DivX are not compatible with each other. So that's what we call rival evolution. The second option is called evolution versus revolution. So one technology is backward compatible, the other technology is backward incompatible, and let the market decide which one that they want to use. So for example, you decide to be backward compatible, I decide to be backward incompatible, and let the market decide which one is gonna win the competition. And the third option is called rival revolution. So both new technologies are backward incompatible. So for example, the early version of Nintendo or early version of PlayStation is not compatible with the current version of PlayStation or the current version of Nintendo. And Nintendo and PlayStation are not compatible with each other. That's what we call rival revolution. Okay, so if you want to launch your new product, new service, new technology, think about the current or the existing technology. Think about your competitors. Do you have enough resources to compete? If you have enough resources to compete, then it is okay to pursue revolutionary strategy, because you have enough resources to support your strategy. You have enough resources to support your policy. But if you don't have enough resources, then probably you can choose to become evolutionary instead of revolutionary. Okay? Any questions? Do I make myself clear on this network standard externalities, positive externalities, or negative externalities, and things like that? Or
Can you
probably
please,
do you want? Yeah, please.
can you please repeat one more time about the rival evolution, etc.?
Rival evolution. Okay, two different companies, both having backward compatible with previous technology, but not with each other. Okay, for example, previous technology is compact disc CD, and new technologies are DVDs and DivX. DVDs were compatible with CD. DivX were compatible with CD. But DVDs and DivX are not compatible with each other.
Thank you.
So a question from Nguyen Tao An. When Apple choose not to use Android but build its own Apple App Store, what strategy is that? Anyone can comment on this? When Apple chose not to use Android but builds its own Apple Store, what strategy is that? Anyone can comment on this question?
It's like rival
It's like
evolution.
rival revolution, but we have to check again. I'm not sure if Apple has its own Apple Store first or Android who first came to the market. I'm not sure about this. I think if I remember correctly, Apple has its own App Store first, and then followed by Android. But either way, the strategy can be considered as rival revolution. Any other comments or questions? Why do we have to think about network effects in business? It seems so technical, it seems so complicated, it seems so abstract, it seems so difficult to understand. But network effect is actually one of the economic mode or a kind of protection that helps you in the competition, in the market. So one of the reasons for us to develop new innovation is actually to give value to our user, to our customers. But then it can be very risky because if we innovate, if we develop new product, if we develop new service, then our competitors will begin to imitate or begin to copy our innovation. But if we are having our economic mode, then we have a kind of protection. We give them a kind of barriers so that our competitors cannot easily imitate our innovation, so that our competitors are not easily copying our innovation because of the structural causes. So Morningstar classifies at least 5 different economic modes. The first one is switching cost. The second one is intangible asset. The third one is network effect. The fourth one is cost advantage. And the last one is efficient scale. Network effect is one of the most important economic mode, especially in the digital economy as we are experiencing now, because the number of the user can grow rapidly, can grow very quickly, exponentially in relatively very short time. And then if 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 the number of your network is increasing, if the number of your network is quite significant, then it can be very difficult for you to switch to other companies, to other service, or to other firms. So network effects and switching costs are actually um, quite related, and it is also related with efficient scale, because if you are having the capability to increase the number of your user, then you can achieve economies of scale. So network effect, again, is very important, especially if you are developing new technologies. And by pursuing network effect, it can gives you the advantage of the switching cost as well as the efficient scale. Some technology startup or technology companies are also giving you a kind of promotion, and give you a kind of discount or cashback or things like that, because they want to give you because they want to build network effect. And if the network effect is quite huge, then it can be very difficult for the user to switch to other platform, to other companies. And by having large number of users, then it means they can achieve economies of scale. Okay. So again, please pay attention to the network effect, because if you take care of your network effects very carefully, it can give you an economic moat. It can give you barriers that can protect you from other competitors. Now, even though network effect can be very powerful, but in order to make network effects beneficial for you, you have to make sure that the network effect is big enough. Because if it is not that big enough, because if it is not uh, passing the threshold, for example, or passing the tipping point, then it doesn't really matter for you. It doesn't give you a kind of protection from your competitors. So how do we increase our network effects? Many different strategies, but I can give you two, for example. The first one is by attracting users with very specific value proposition. For example, Instagrams are developing so many different photo filters. The filters are very specific for Instagram, and we cannot get those kind of filters from any other application. So by giving that kind of very specific value proposition, it can attract users to remain on your network. And the second strategy is by dominating long tail markets and try to lever the network. For example, Facebook was built on the relationship based on where do you study. So one campus at one time. So if you go to the same campus with some other person, then you can connect with each other. And those network will slowly lever the overall network of Facebook. The same goes with LinkedIn. If you are using LinkedIn, for example, LinkedIn will encourage you to build or to establish a professional affiliation with person who are having similar background, probably working at the same company as you, or studying in the same university as you, or probably are working in the same industries, and so on and so forth. So you can find those two strategies are very common in many technology company, in many digital platform business, because they want to establish their network, because they want to create network effects, because they want to increase their network effects, because by having a huge network effects, it can protect you from competition. Um, Indeed, network effect is not the only one. You can protect yourself from other competitors by, for example, if you become the first mover, if you have some sort of natural monopoly, if you have lots of different products or services, if you have lots of varieties, if you have a patent, for example, you can protect yourself from the competitors. But once again, network effects is very important in this case, especially if you are in a business of technology. If you are in a business of digital technology, then please pay attention to the network effects or network externality. Okay, any questions up to this point? Please, if you have anything to say, or if you find that I'm talking too fast, or maybe you find something that cannot be something that can be quite difficult to understand or things like that, please don't hesitate to ask your question, or you can also write on the chat box. Now, let's move on to the paper that I gave you. The paper written by Paul David in 1985, entitled "The Clio and the Economics of QWERTY." So probably you don't know about this, but the layout of our keyboard was actually developed in 1867. It never changed. It remains like what it was back in 1867. And the thing is that the current layout of the keyboard, the QWERTY keyboard, was actually designed that way to slow down the typist, because the key mechanism of the keyboard at that time was not good enough. So if you press a button, if you press a key, then it will take some time for the button, for the key to goes back again. Okay, so if you type too fast, then the button will goes down, and it takes some time to goes up again. So that's why they came up with QWERTY. Essentially, QWERTY was designed to be very ineffective. QWERTY was designed to slow down the way you type on your keyboard. QWERTY was designed in 1867, and it was never changed since that time. So it's quite interesting because because it is not totally like that. It is not totally that way being developed in QWERTY way, but during the period of sorry, during the period of late 1800 to early 1940s, early 1950s, there were so many alternative design. For example, the one proposed by Beaconsderfer. They developed a keyboard which we call diatensor. And then another strong contenders for QWERTY keyboard was the one being developed by August Vorak. That came up in 1936. So he patented the Vorak simplified keyboard, or DSK, which was very famous at that time. And in 1940, US Navy conducted a kind of experiment to show that by using DSK, it will increase the typing speed, and also reduce the cost of retraining within 10 days. And in 2005, Barbara Blackburn became the fastest typist according to the Guinness World Record using DSK, not using QWERTY, not using the keyboard that we are using at this moment. What makes DSK unique? DSK gives us a better balance of hand loading. So if we are using QWERTY, then we rely pretty much on our left hand, and we know the most population of people in the world are right-handed. So it doesn't make sense if we type more using our left hand instead of our right hand. Secondly, the design of the Vorak is quite balanced between left hand side and right hand side, between upper level of your keyboard compared to the middle level and the lower level of your keyboard. And then if you are typing using QWERTY, then we can only type about 100 common words in English using our home row letters, our top row keyboards. But with DSK, we can type up to 3,000 common words in English, or about 35% of words that we are using in our normal conversation or normal text. And so it implies that by using DSK, the distance of finger travel is much more efficient compared to if we are using QWERTY, because the placement of that common words was dominated on the top row, so we don't have to move our finger very far. And then it can help us to avoid outward sequence fingering. So essentially, DSK is much better compared to QWERTY. DSK is easier to learn. DSK is much more accurate. DSK is faster because if you are typing using DSK, you will be 15 to 20% faster compared to if you are using QWERTY. So if you are working in a kind of environment that requires you to type a lot, for example, if you are a writer, if you are a researcher, you have to type every single day, then this can matters so much. And then because DSK is involving less hand movement compared to QWERTY, then it will be less fatigue if you are using DSK. If you are working with DSK, then you will be much less tired compared to if you are using QWERTY. So again, QWERTY is not very good. QWERTY is not very efficient, but still we are using QWERTY, the design that was developed in 1867 until current day or until the present day in 2020. So the big question is why QWERTY and why not something else? We know that DSK broke the world records, Guinness World Records for speed typing in 2005. The research conducted by US Navy showed that DSK is faster, and the cost to train the typist is also much cheaper. We have lots of innovation between 1900 to 1924, but all of them were rejected. And if you know, the early version of Apple computers was actually being equipped with an option. So you can type using QWERTY or you can type using DSK. So the big question is, why does the entire world use the most inefficient keyboard? Why and what does it have to do with us in 2020? Why do we have to use a keyboard that are still being developed in 1800s? We know there is not inefficient. We know that QWERTY is inefficient. We know that QWERTY is inferior standard, but we are still using that kind of layout. So again, the question is, why does the entire world use the most inefficient keyboard? And what does it have to do with us in 2020? So that's the big question. In that paper, Paul David explained 3 different reasons. The first reason was called technical interrelatedness. So technical interrelatedness was basically when you are developing something, you have to make sure that there is some sort of compatibility between your hardware or the physical layout of the keyboard and your software, the capability of your typist. If you increase the likelihood of if you increase the compatibility of the system, then you will increase the likelihood that the next user will learn QWERTY. So because of QWERTY is universal at that time, then there are no learning costs for the industry. And because of that, most typewriters was actually using QWERTY layout. And the typists will use what they already use. And that's why it makes QWERTY is becoming universal. Okay. The second explanation is called economies of scale. Because in a world where typists have not any preference about which kind of keyboard to use, and typewriter producers follow typist preference, so typists will probably choose the same keyboard chosen by the precedent typist. So let's say you want to buy new computers at this moment. Because of the previous computers that you have or the previous computers that you are using at your campus, at your university were develop using Microsoft Windows, then obviously now you are going to buy a computer that are based on Microsoft Windows. The same happened with QWERTY. Because QWERTY was widely used, it became the de facto standard. It increased the race of QWERTY's users, and it will reduce the production cost. It is what we call by demand side economies of scale. So initially, you have to struggle to find out what kind of standard that we are going to use. But along the way, as soon as you pass the threshold, then the probability of the next user will use that kind of product will significantly increasing. Okay, that's what we call by demand side economies of scale. And the third reason was what we call quasi-reversibility of investment. Because the switching cost was very high, so no one else will want to spend the money or the time or the R&D to develop alternative design. So those kind of costs is what we call by sunk cost investment. So because other companies were already producing something on QWERTY, then we don't have any incentive to come up with new alternative. So competitors will find it beneficial to make hardware that are compatible with QWERTY instead of making new products that are not compatible with QWERTY. So remember my previous slide on backward compatibility and backward incompatibility. If you are facing this kind of situation where you have to deal with quasi-irreversibility of investment, then it will be beneficial for you to make your hardware evolutionary, to make your hardware compatible with existing technology. This is also happened with the different size of railway wagons that I gave you on the LMS, a short video on the railway. Because of the different standard, it creates a kind of sunk cost investment, so that the competitors who are coming up with something new will tend to make those their product to be compatible with previous technology rather than making it incompatible with previous technology. So those three factors are very important when you want to develop new innovation. So again, think about your technical interrelatedness. You have to make it easy, you have to make it compatible, you have to make it seamless so that it is not difficult for new user to use your product. Secondly, you have to think about your economies of scale. Whatever innovation that you are going to develop, you have to make sure that you make it cheap, or even better, you make it free for your customers. And then finally, you have to think about quasi-irreversibility of investment. You have to make sure that your innovation is available everywhere, available anywhere, so that users won't find it difficult to try or to use your products. And those three factors, technical interrelatedness, economies of scale, and quasi-irreversibility of investment, will put us in what we call path dependence. So path dependence will goes like this. In the phase one, there will be so many innovation in different design. In phase two, we try to find out what we are going to use. We try several major design, and those design will compete with each other. But then in phase three, we became locked in. Once we find our own standard, once we find our QWERTY, then we became locked in QWERTY. So after this, along the way, the innovation will remain in that in that situation. That's why it is very important for us to think about path dependency, because path dependency will change or will affect the way in which we develop our innovation. One more thing about path dependency is that path dependency is becoming relevant because it's seen to attach to systems that exhibit network effects. So you can find path dependency in every system that suffer from network effects. And on one side, we can see this as a kind of market failure because the market cannot find or cannot realize the best standard, like QWERTY versus DSK. QWERTY is considered to be inferior, considered to be worse compared to DSK. But we still use QWERTY, so we can classify QWERTY as a market failure. It can be a problem, it cannot be a problem. It is only a problem if we become locked in to an inferior standard. So if we become locked in, if we remain in this period, doing something with the standard that is inferior, relatively inferior compared to other alternative design over here, then it can be problematic. It can be difficult for us. This is what happened with Microsoft. Initially, Microsoft was very famous for becoming unreliable, very, very, very unreliable, and then prone to virus, prone to worms and things like that. But then we already being locked in to Microsoft products. So that's why we have to be very careful about path dependency, because when you want to develop new innovation, when you want to launch your new innovation, you have to think very carefully what are the dominant design at that time. Once we become locked in, once we know the path dependency, then it doesn't make any sense to develop other alternative. But if we are still in phase 1 or phase 2, then it is okay for us to develop different alternative. It is okay for us to develop with backward incompatibility. But when we are in phase 3, when we are becoming locked in, when we are in a path dependency, then it doesn't make any sense to develop new innovation with backward incompatibility. Okay? Any questions on this? Any questions on path dependency, on network effects, on lock-in, or maybe on market failure, please? So far, so good. Okay. So what are the key takeaways for this session? The first one is that please remember that we are living in a network economy. So we have to be very careful about network externalities and network effects. Network externalities and network effect can make us successful or failure in the market. Secondly, when we are thinking about digital innovation, then we have to take into account current technologies or existing technologies. Think about our competitors. Do we have enough resources to compete with them? And then thirdly, we have to consider about network effects. Network effects can be very powerful, but it is not easy to generate enough network effects. It requires time, it requires money and other sacrifice as well. And then fourth, technical interrelatedness, economies of scale, and quasi-irreversibility will cause a kind of lock-in, and and lock-in will put us in a wrong or inferior standard, just what we have with a QWERTY keyboard, which is inferior compared to other design. And lock-in or path dependency is very common in the network economy. So you have to be, again, if we come back to this previous slide, you have to think very carefully which phase are you at this moment. If you are in phase 1 or if you are in phase 2, then it is okay to develop alternative design, alternative technology that are not compatible with previous technology. But when we are in phase 3, when we are already locked in, then it doesn't make any sense if we develop alternative technology that are not compatible with this dominant design. Okay, so I think that's all for the key takeaways for this session. Do you have any comments or questions on this? Is it difficult for you to understand the concept? Or if humans are locked into a standard, what do you think is needed for us to get to the phase 1? To be honest, it is quite difficult. I mean, once we become locked into a particular standard, then unless there is some big changes in the society, big changes in the technology, then we will remain in that particular standard. But for example, we are now in the pandemic situation. Probably a major catastrophe like this can affect the way in which we lock into an inferior standard. So usually in normal condition, it is very difficult to change when we are already locked into a particular standard. But if there are some major events, there are some catastrophe like what we are experiencing like today, then probably there is some possibility for us to get back to the phase 1. Okay. Now, any other questions? I hope I can finish this in time, but let me give you, as always, let me give you a kind of questions to think about. Does network really matter? How could we figure out how much or how big it will matter for us? And the second question is, which do you think will be the most spoken language in the next centuries? Will it be English? Will it be Mandarin? Will it be some other language? And why? This is very important because language was actually quite like network. It was being used by so many different users or so many different speakers. And the larger the user of that particular language, then the value of that language will also increasing. So again, the question is, does network really matter? How could we figure out how much it matters? And the second question is, which do you think will be the most spoken language in the next centuries and why? Okay, any comments, question? No? If not, then let me give you a little bit more on the stories of the men who were supposed to be Bill Gates. So I'm not sure you know about this person. He is Gary Gildell. Gary Gildell was a math professor in California. So he got his PhD and he started working for Intel. And back then in 1972, he developed a kind of operating systems called PLM, and then he then come up with the revised version of PLM, which called CPM. So because CPM was very good at that time, so he tried to sell CPM to Intel, but Intel was not interested in CPM. So because of that, then Gary decided to establish his own company with his wife, Dorothy, and the company was called DRI, or Digital Research Initiative. So Gary Gildell was very famous back then because he changed the way in which we use our computer. So at that time, if we want to operate new computers, then we have to tailor-made the software. So we have to customize the software by ourselves. But with CPM, we can use universal software like what we are using Microsoft Windows, or like we are using Linux or Apple iOS and things like that. And CPM was very popular at that time. One of the user was Trafo Data, which was run by Bill Gates and Paul Allen they uh, before they initiate Microsoft. And in 1970s was the wave of change from microcomputers to personal computers. And the main player for this was Apple in 1976. Remember the picture that I show you when we are talking about a digital platform in last session. Apple was very famous as a computer manufacturer in 1970s. And then in 1981, IBM decided to join the party. IBM decided to enter the market of personal computers. Initially, this is the interesting thing about this story. So initially, IBM went to Bill Gates. But Bill Gates say, I don't have the product, I don't have the capability, you can go to Gary Kiltle. And then IBM came to Gary, but unfortunately, Gary was left for a flying trip in his private plane. And IBM met with Dorothy, his wife, and a team of DRI lawyers, but they cannot come into an agreement. One of the things that makes those kind of disagreement was that they want a kind of unilateral NDA, non-disclosure agreement, but IBM was not comfortable with that. And then Gary want to sell CPM on a royalty basis, but IBM want to pay one-time fee. So again, IBM come back to Bill Gates. Microsoft at that time was not like what Microsoft today. So Bill Gates saw this as an opportunity. So he acquired Citel Computers. He came to Apple Citel Computers, who was making QDOS. QDOS was very similar with CPM. And Microsoft changed the packaging and changed the name, changed the label from QDOS to PC-DOS. And then he gave PC-DOS to IBM. Obviously, Gary was not happy with this. So Gary come to IBM and try to sell CPM to IBM. And IBM says, okay, so I will give you the opportunity for both of you. So Bill Gates can sell IBM computers with PC-DOS. Gary can sell IBM computers with a CPM, and let the market decide. What are the things that quite interesting here is that the pricing scheme that Bill Gates gave to their customer at that time was only $40 compared to Gary's CPM, which was sold for $240. So 6 times more expensive than Bill Gates. After that, obviously, we know the rest of the story. People came to Microsoft because it was cheaper, and because Gary cannot realize the opportunity that came for him. And Gary was not happy. Gary want to sell the company. Gary went to several different companies to sell the products, but no one interested in his products. Because everywhere he went, people would come up with IBM, people would come up with Microsoft, and people would blame him because he was not at his house when IBM came in. So he then came into alcoholism, and he suffered from his professional work. And in 1991, he stopped his famous TV show, which he co-hosted in 1985. And in 1994, sadly, Gary got into fight at a bar and then later passed away because of injuries. So this is a very sad story for a man who was supposed to be Bill Gates. Now, final thing from me, this was Gary Kiltle and this was Bill Gates, you know. Both of them were on a conference, on a technology event, and during that time, Gary made a presentation, and he said that operating system is a very large market, and there is no room for lots of companies. But Bill Gates said that no, there will always be one company. So from 1970s, Bill Gates realized that there is a power of network effect. There is a power of network externalities. And I'm sure that this is one of the things that made Microsoft like Microsoft that we know at this moment. I think that's all from me for this session. Here are several references for my presentation. If you want to learn more about this particular topic, as always, I will upload the slide on the LMS. Feel free to download it. If you have any question or things like that, please feel free to ask me. And I think that's all for today, guys. I hope you learned a lot from this session. Thank you for your time and attention. I'll look forward to see you on Wednesday. Okay? Take care, and I shall be signing off right about now. Bye.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Bye.
Thank you.